Good afternoon, everyone. This is Bob Pompiani, soon to be joined by Missy Matthews, and we are live here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. On the south side, a very busy morning as the Pittsburgh Steelers have made a change at offensive coordinator. Matt Canada has been relieved of his duties. Mike Tomlin will be coming up here talking about what the plan is moving forward. The Steeler offense has been one of the worst in the league in terms of points per game at 16.6. If you look back over the history of their franchise, that would, if it continues, be third worst in their history dating back to 1970. So obviously the results offensively were not there. That needs to pick up, and that's why this change was made. We got a lot to talk about today, including that loss to Cleveland, as well as looking ahead to Cincinnati, a team which has done well so far this year in terms of beating good teams. They beat San Francisco, Buffalo, the entire NFC West, but they've been struggling, and they don't have Joe Burrow. There's a lot to talk about. Mike Tomlin is ready to do that talking, so let's go upstairs and join his press conference live right now.
Good afternoon. First, let's start with the news of the day. As I'm sure you guys already know, I made a change at the coordinator position. Did not come to this decision lightly, to be really transparent with you. It's just a personal belief of mine from a leadership perspective. It is my role to absorb and protect those that I work with. And this doesn't feel like that. Obviously, I'm not interested in assigning blame or deflecting in any way. It's more in my natural nature to absorb, to be quite honest with you. I've been in this role so long, I'm quite comfortable absorbing. So just rest assured that this decision was not taken lightly. I got a lot of respect for Matt personally and professionally. It was not easy, but I thought it was necessary. This is a result-oriented business, and to be short, the improvements were not rapid enough or consistent enough for us to proceed. You got to score touchdowns in this business. You got to win games in this business. And just the totality of it has us where we are today. I am quite confident and excited for the men who get an opportunity to evolve in terms of their roles. One man's misfortune in this business is another man's opportunity. We say that regarding injury. It's the same thing under these circumstances. I'm excited about Eddie Faulkner coordinating our efforts, organizing staff responsibility and meetings, organizing game planning, leading our unit as a collective in review of our tape and preparation for upcoming opponents and things of that nature, things that the coordinator does. He has full authority in that regard and my support, obviously. And then from a play caller perspective, the bulk of that responsibility will fall on Mike Sullivan. And that's also a really natural thing because he's done it in two different locations in the National Football League. He has tangible experience. I'm sure that will be helpful, but also, and probably more importantly, as a quarterback coach, man, he works closely with Kenny. And so looking for fluidity in that area and some cohesion there and really getting a feel for what he does well, and hopefully that aids us as well. Talked to the staff very transparently about it this morning. We're not grading on the curve. We're excited about this week. We're singularly focused. We're excited about meeting our players and displaying our readiness for them tomorrow. And so, you know, those are the things along those lines. I'm sure you guys will have questions, but I'll proceed with my normal process and open it up for questions at the end. In terms of our game in Cleveland, obviously disappointed in the outcome. Kudos to those guys, man. They played a hard-fought game. They played a smart game, man. They minimized negativity on offense, man. They didn't expose that young quarterback to a lot of negativity. It made the turnover component of play very difficult. It made getting back into the game very difficult. We were getting stops, and they were punting as opposed to turnovers and short fields and things that kind of defined game one, for example, when we played them. On the other side of the ball, man, they got a quality defense. That's been well documented. We talked about it. They got after us. I thought the environment was a component of that, but we've been in hostile environments before. We've been in that one before. We just need to perform better. And it's obviously, that we're going to be in another hostile environment this week. I'll get to that. And so, you know, the things that I outlined after the game, man, you got to score more points. We got to do a good job of rising up in moments. I just thought like the kicking game per se, the net punting. And that's another reflection of how, games oftentimes unfold differently. We played them in week 2 the first time we played them. We kept them on the long field, particularly in the second half with our punting. They did a really nice job with their punting, and we didn't do a good job with ours in the second game, and I thought the field positioning component was significant. But that's not new news to us. I'm just reporting the news about how significant that phase is in determining games, and particularly games like that, games that we had a texture or a feel for that could unfold in that way in terms of being tight and low scoring. And so we grow from that experience as we move forward. Man, let's talk player availability. Minka's working hard to be a component of this week's plan, as is Mon Adams. In both cases, man, we'll be thoughtful about their participation and levels of participation. We get later in the week, we'll let the amount of that participation and the quality of it potentially be our guide in terms of their availability. We got other bumps and bruises associated with play, nothing of big-time significance to mention in this setting. Now in regards to Cincinnati, man, I love and respect the jungle. Talking about a hostile environment, AFC North football, excited about getting our group in there and watching them respond to an environment again this week. They got a quality defensive group. They got continuity not only from a schematic standpoint under Lou, but also from a player's perspective. Their critical players have been there, homegrown, if you will. This inside linebacker tandem, can't say enough about 5'5" and 5'7", man, just looking at their growth and development and their playmaking over their careers there. They deserve recognition for that. That organization deserves recognition for that. You turn on the turnover reel, those two guys are central figures in the turnover reel. They both got multiple interceptions. They both caused fumbles. That is serious business for them. I think they're number 1 in the National Football League in turnover ratio. They do a great job of taking the ball away. They do a really good job of safeguarding the ball. And so our agenda in that regard. And so those are two trains on the track if you're looking at how these two teams could come together. Can't say enough about the rush that they put on quarterbacks, particularly led by Trey coming off the left side of our offensive structure, particularly in their home environment, crowd noise, et cetera. He's a formidable guy. They are a formidable collective in terms of what they do to the quarterback, in terms of how they apply pressure. They got continuity on the back end. Obviously, Mike Hilton is a central figure in that, especially without Jesse Bates and Von Bell. They move him around. They ask him to do a lot. He's a hub of communication. You guys know that we know Mike. He's a really good player. They do a really good job of keeping a lid on it. They got some young corners emerging for them that they've invested in and are playing a lot, but it still appears to be schematically things that are in line with what they've done. They're aggressive. You'll get open grass 0. You'll get situational 0, possession down 0. They pin their ears back and come after you, particularly in their environment. And so we got some work ahead of us in terms of prep. I'm sure they'll be aggressive in terms of going after us because of our obvious transitional things, but that's neither here nor there. We'll be ready. On the other side of the ball, they're going through some transitional things themselves, playing without Joe Burrow. They got capable players other than the quarterback position, starting first and foremost with Joe Mixon. We got a lot of respect for him. Dangerous runner on all levels, inside and out, in the passing game. I would imagine that he's going to get a legitimate workload this week given their circumstances, but that doesn't mean that he's any easier to minimize. It's going to be an all-day job trying to maintain and manage his impact on the game. Their receivers, they need no endorsement from me. That is an awesome collective. Chase, Higgins, Boyd, the others, man, they do a really good job. They got a young rookie from Princeton who's got a couple of touchdowns already this year. For example, man, their inclusion of all people in a helmet, particularly in situational football, on the offensive side is really challenging. I talked about Joe Mixon, but they use 3 runners. and they use them all extremely well. And so we got our work cut out for us, man. But this is AFC North football. We don't run from it. We run to it. We understand the significance of this week, man, and we're excited about, first and foremost, man, working on days like today, putting together a good plan, being thoughtful about the positions we put our players in, and then ultimately tomorrow getting in the building with them and starting our physical preparation process. And so I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, is Pickett still the starter?
On Matt, was it just beyond the offense that had to do with maybe what you've seen from Kenny the last 3 games, and where you are at 6-4 and still in good shape?
You know, there's a lot of layers to it, obviously. All of the things that you suggest are true. Our most recent performance, a component of it. But, you know, I just think you know when you're there, to be blunt and short about the answer. Again, not saying that flippantly, not taking the situation lightly at all, but just having been in the role that I've been in for some time, you just know when you're there, and usually it's a totality of a myriad of variables.
Is Pickett still the starter?
Yes.
How did Matt handle the news? What was that?
I'll leave that between he and I.
I know, Mike, you said that.
Was there a tipping point? I mean, you put a run down the sidelines last couple of weeks. There appeared to be progress. Guys seem to.
The tipping point is when I made the decision.
Mike, you said that the staff isn't going to be graded on a curve this upcoming week. How does the change in OC and play caller impact your evaluation of Kenny going forward the rest of the season and what he's done to this point?
I don't know that it does.
Did you consider bringing in someone from outside, and how realistic is that at this point of the year?
I hadn't considered that realistically at this juncture, no.
Mike, how much could change other than when the plays are called and in what sequence?
You know, that's to be determined. There are a lot of challenges, obviously, doing what it is that we're doing, but the unknown component is a potential positive, and so we're going to hold our cards close to our vest.
Mike, what do you want to see different schematically from your offense?
I just want to see points. I want to engineer victory more fluidly, and points do that.
Mike, what went into the thought of giving it dividing up between 2 men instead
of because you know we still got to coach running backs, we still got to coach quarterbacks. The strength of the pack is the pack, and when you're faced with challenges, I just think that's the natural and appropriate thing is you distribute responsibility. It's like when you lose a player like Cam Hayward. It's not one guy that replaces Cam Hayward. It's a committee of guys, if you will.
Mike, is this an evaluation for Eddie Faulkner to be offensive coordinator beyond this season?
We're trying to beat the Cincinnati Bengals this week.
So what got you there, as you said, this week, as opposed to, like, for instance, when there's a logical break in the bye?
You know, like I told Jerry over here, it's a myriad of variables in that equation. You just know when you're there. I'm not going to get into great detail in this setting. I don't think that's appropriate.
Mike, was the frustration of some of your offensive players part of that variable?
Again, I said there were many variables. I've given you guys my statement respectfully, out of respect to him, particularly professionally. I'm just not going to get into a lot of details and give you the pound of flesh that you're hunting.
Mike, when did you tell the locker room about
I hadn't.
Mike, with Pickett, is the biggest issue miscommunications, or are there plays that he's not pulling the trigger on?
What issue with Pickett are you referring to?
What the developmental issue with him?
Rephrase your question. I'm trying to figure out how you're delivering it to me.
Okay. You guys aren't scoring as much as you want to this year.
Yes.
Is part of the problem that Kenny and Deontay Johnson are too often miscommunicating, or is he not?
There hadn't been enough continuity in our work, certainly. It hadn't developed at the rate that I would like it to. We're still showing signs of September football kind of in some instances, and, you know, that's unacceptable, man. It's late November.
Mike, if you hadn't told the locker room, how did they find out that there was a change at coordinator?
Probably from you guys.
Was this your decision and your decision alone, or was this made collectively with Omar and Art?
Leadership is lonely. I don't run from it. I run to it. It was mine and mine alone.
Mike, what gives you confidence that Kenny is your quarterback continuing to go forward?
Because I work with him every day. And I've been really transparent with you guys about him and his willingness to work and my experience and what that tells me. This guy will do any and everything. He works extremely hard. I just saw him a few minutes ago in the building. There's a such thing as football justice, man. Those guys usually get what they're looking for. And so that's why I remain consistently optimistic about the trajectory of his growth and development.
What are the challenges for a quarterback to have a new coordinator midseason?
My first time. And so, we'll see.
Like, what gives you confidence that Eddie and Mike Sullivan can produce better results? What about the way they prepare?
You make decisions like this with one purpose and one purpose alone, and that's for better results. And so we wouldn't be having this discussion if I didn't think that. A lot of leadership things are intangible things. I get it from my gut, and so that's the best explanation that I can give you.
What kind of things have you seen from Eddie in his time here that put him in a position to be considered for this opportunity?
Man, he has a real steady voice and demeanor. He's really solid. I love the way he has managed his room in the years that he's been here through good times, bad times, etc. There's always great clarity in that space. He's natural with people from a communication standpoint and a consistency of communication standpoint. And so I got no reservations about his ability to do it. I think when we all ascend in coaching, we take our experience and we expand it. I was a secondary coach. When I became a coordinator of defense, I ran the defensive unit very similar to how I ran the defensive back room. When I became a head coach, I ran a team in the same spirit and communicated the same way I ran a defensive unit. And so that's why I'm confident. I've seen how he's handled that position group, and oftentimes that's a reflection of how he's going to handle a larger body.
Similarly with Mike Sullivan, what have you seen from him in his year and a half?
Similar things, man. Really good, solid communicator, highly organized, really consistent. Has got experience as a play caller. Has got experience as a play caller in less than ideal circumstances. I think he's, been an interim play caller before, and so it's just a good means of calling upon guys who have natural skill sets in those areas or experience in those areas without disrupting the apple cart too much, man, and us still pushing forward as a collective.
Was there anything distinctive about his play calling experience when you hired him that got your attention?
I was aware of it, certainly, but that wasn't the role I was hiring him for.
I remember after Jacksonville, your opening statements, you said it was your goal to be a dominant team that doesn't put itself in a position to be, use your word, flimsy. Like with all the penalties and so forth from that game, you didn't want to be flimsy. The offense, was it not operating and constructed in a way that you felt was open enough to allow yourself to be put in better positions late in games? Was that the biggest crux of this?
No, the biggest crux of it was results. The results speak for themselves, man. We're in a result-oriented business. I often say, football is our game, our business is winning. We weren't winning enough and fluidly enough, and that's just the reality of it.
Mike, are these final 7 games important, critical in the long-term development of Kenny?
Man, I'm focused on this week in terms of the development of Kenny. We're not urinating on the fire, man. We're getting ready to play a football game and win this week. That is the only agenda here. It's not big picture and 2024 and all of that. This organization is not wired like that.
Mike, what do you need to see from Kenny this week? What are you looking to see from him this
Looking
week?
to win.
Anyone else? Mike, what do you consider an asset of the leaders that you have, or what kind of an asset do you see of the leadership that you have on the offensive side of your locker room?
You talking about the players? Yes. Man, they care. They want to be the reason why we're successful. And you want to work with guys like that don't run from opportunity but want to be central components of it. They love football. They do what we ask them to do, largely. And so, I'm excited about that component of it.
What have you seen from as far as the running to adversity when you guys have had struggles both this year and prior for some of the guys that you're more familiar with?
What is your question?
Just say, what have you seen from them in prior struggles that gives you that confidence that just...
I'm looking at a group that has not sought comfort, that has not placed blame elsewhere. They've absorbed it. They've largely kept their mouth shut, and they go back to work and they wait for the next opportunity. I appreciate that, while at the same time I don't pat them on the back for it, because I expect them to do that. And I expect it to continue. I know the type of people they are. I know the type of environment we have here. They know what's expected of them. And so, that's where we are.
Kenny seems to have a pretty close relationship with Mike Sullivan. Did that play a role in deciding to move on with him as a play caller?
No.
One defensive thing, if that's okay.
Sure.
Cleveland, I think at one point, they threw up the graphic, they were throwing in 2.15 seconds. TJ's been asked about it, Benton was asked about it. How do you combat that? They just said you got to win and get there. We can't use it as an excuse. But is there anything schematically you can do to?
Yeah, they're not gonna score a lot of points operating like that as well. And so, like, we got no control over how people approach us schematically. We really don't care. If they're not stretching the field vertically, then we're not being challenged vertically. And so, I'm okay with that.
Mike, you guys have moved on from Miles Jack after the season. Now you've brought him back. What do you see in him? What do you think he has left?
He's a guy that has experience here, and he's here in a practice squad capacity, and so I won't say too much.
What did guys like Trenton Thompson and other guys who filled in on defense provide for you guys in this last performance?
I was really pleased with the level of communication and the quality of that communication, particularly guys in the interior communication portions of our defense, guys like Mike Walker, man, guys like Trent. I thought they did a really nice job. It's not easy, but I thought we, particularly after the first couple of series, we really settled down and operated with really good fluidity from a communication perspective, and I'm thankful for that.
Mike, did Mika have a setback before the Green Bay game? You seemed pretty optimistic that he would return to practice, and then.
Do I seem less optimistic now?
Well, no, but I'm saying he hasn't even practiced, so I'm just curious. The lights seem to be on for that Sunday, and he hasn't practiced yet.
No, there's no loss of optimism.
Mike, how important was Landon Roberts and keeping some of those young guys you were just talking about on defense together?
Landon is a great communicator. He's a veteran. It's one of the reasons why we were attracted to him in free agency. He more than answered the call.
Was there a thought at all? I know it was still 3.5 minutes or so left in the game. You had a chance to take a long field goal on that fourth down.
No issues there, man. We played the field position game. We got the ball back.
Anyone else?
Like you mentioned that you just saw Kenny. Did you have any conversations about this? How was he reacting?
I was actually going to do my television show, and time was pressing, and so, no, there wasn't a time for a conversation. It was just a chin up.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin. Missy Matthews joins us here now, as usual. We'll get a conversation going about what happened today. Of course, the big news, Matt, Canada has been relieved of his duties. Eddie Faulkner coordinates. Mike Sullivan will be calling the plays. He has experience, so it's going to be kind of a partnership situation. How do you see this all playing out? And the big question, how will it affect the offense, I suppose, in terms of points? Because they just have not scored enough points, Missy. We talked about how much, on average, 16.6. That's really unacceptable in the NFL, given the fact that you're going to have to score in a quarterback-driven league.
Well, I think especially coming off the loss to the Browns, where the defense was able to hold them to just 13 points, and knowing that they had chances, especially in that fourth quarter, to try to get more points on the board in terms of the Steelers' offense. I think Coach said it pretty bluntly. The goal of the change, he felt it. It was a gut move. Almost similar to how he worded it is when he decided in the Jets game at halftime last year to bench Mitch Trubisky and put Kenny Pickett in as the starter, score more points and engineer victories more fluidly. He said he feels like there's some September football in their play, and it's November. Excuse me, and I think sitting at their record of 6-4, knowing what the AFC playoff picture looks like going into these final games, something needed to happen so that you're not having games like this, and here we are today.
Because they made a change at coordinator spot doesn't change the fact that Kenny Pickett has been inaccurate at times. It may change how they call plays. Like, when you talk to coordinators about playbooks are expansive. It's about what plays you call. And maybe it was Matt Canada was too comfortable with certain play calls and didn't expand the playbook. And maybe that has something to do with the performance we've seen from Kenny Pickett. But the bottom line is he needs to be better himself.
No doubt about it, and Kenny even said that after the game, but I don't think making this decision this morning, as Coach said, he did not even have a chance to address it to the team. This is a player's day off. They'll come in tomorrow for their first meeting as they prepare for the Bengals. So I think it's, they just have to kind of roll with the punches. You're not going to scrap everything that was happening. You're going to build off of it, and maybe there's things that they didn't like or that Mike Sullivan or Eddie Faulkner sees in a different way and make little tweaks to it.
In case you missed earlier in the press conference, for those of you just tuning in right now to KDK Plus or Steeler Digital Platform, Mike Tomlin said this was his decision and his decision alone. Quote, leadership is lonely. It was mine and mine alone. We'll talk more about the change at offensive coordinator, what it could mean for Kenny Pickett in this offense. It's got to change soon. They got a big game coming up this week against a team that is playing without its star quarterback. All that coming up as we continue right here live from the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex on the south side. Steelers Bengals coming up this week on Sunday. We'll be right back.
This place is juiced up. The stadium is on fire. They're enjoying what they're seeing.
Outside of the location, of course, was there a different feel with this game compared to last time these two teams met?
Not really. 13-10. Both teams played hard. Kind of the same as at the crib for real.
George, what's going to get you guys more consistent with the pass game?
Just keep working, to be honest. That's really all you can say. As far as every position, just keep working.
How frustrating is it that you guys have not been able to move the ball down the field, especially throwing it?
People woke up today, so I'm blessed for that. It's not really frustrating. It's just you just got to keep working. You never want to lose. That's with anybody in the world. But you just got to keep going.
When you guys came back 10 nothing down, you feel like maybe you had the momentum going there, might pull this one out?
Yeah, that's the whole purpose. That's what I mean by keep working. That's when we locked in, got guys finishing runs. J-Dub broke a big run, so that's the definition.
Kenny's missed a couple of you guys on some throws. There have been overthrows or maybe miscommunications. Is there something that needs to improve with the chemistry between you guys and Kenny?
No, I feel like we do enough chemistry stuff at practice. I just feel like, when it's time for the game, all we can do is just keep working.
Jalen, you guys have won these type of games 6 times this year. I mean, how can you put it into words how frustrating it is to be on the other side of it right now?
I mean, yeah, it sucks. Obviously, you want a different outcome. But, like the rest of us, you got to go in the lab and figure out what it is that we need to fix.
Jalen, when you guys got the ball back, with a 142, you guys threw it 3 straight times. Did you think, were you surprised? Did you think maybe guys might run it there a little bit because of the success you were having?
I just trusted whatever Matt Canada, whatever the coaches were going to call, and I just knew we had to execute that play.
I feel like you guys are still in a good spot right now. As a team, just with
oh
the
yeah,
entire
for
season
sure.
ahead of you.
Yeah, as a team, we don't let these kind of things get to us. It makes us stronger.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
As I'm sure you guys already know, I made a change at the coordinator position. Did not come to this decision lightly, to be really transparent with you. It's just a personal belief of mine from a leadership perspective. It is my role to absorb and protect those that I work with. And this doesn't feel like that. Obviously, I'm not interested in assigning blame or deflecting in any way. It's more in my natural nature to absorb, to be quite honest with you. I've been in this role so long, I'm quite comfortable absorbing. So just rest assured that this decision was not taken lightly. I got a lot of respect for Matt personally and professionally. It was not easy, but I thought it was necessary.
All right, welcome back. Necessary because the Steelers are just not putting up enough points on offense, and this is a league that you have to do that in. If you talk about offenses in general, the whole number one issue is how many points will you score a game. Sure, you don't want to turn the ball over. Sure, you don't want to make mistakes to help the other team in their efforts to score points, but at the same time, you got to score, and they just did not score enough.
Yeah, and go back to the week 2 game with the Browns. It was 2 defensive touchdowns that helped them win that game. Completely different when they traveled to Cleveland, and they're going to be going into the jungle, as Coach Tomlin was talking about, to face Cincinnati. I know they don't have Joe Burrow, but yes, turning the ball over is good. The defense being able to get big stops, but if you can't score points, it doesn't really help you, as we saw in Cleveland.
So this is new territory for the Steelers. They just don't fire coaches, in season. They haven't done that under Mike Tomlin for sure, and so now the help comes from internal people who've already been here. Eddie Faulkner has a long-time relationship with Mike Tomlin. He knows how to coordinate. He'll be responsible for that, and I assume he'll be the guy that people will go to and answer questions on Thursday when coordinators talk. And Faulkner's been around. His run game has been very good. The play calling goes to Mike Sullivan. So this is not your normal kind of setup, Missy, but at the same time, they're not going to go out and find anyone right now. So this has to be the way it goes. And again, I'm trying to figure out what I would expect differently from this offense at this point, but I got to believe this playbook is much deeper than what they've utilized so far.
Maybe it's consistency, execution, scoring the touchdowns and points, as we were just saying. I think, there's not an assistant running backs coach. You can't take Eddie Faulkner, make him the OC, and then no one's dealing with that group, especially after the success we've seen over the past 3 weeks in the ground game. And then for Mike Sullivan, he's called plays in the National Football League before for 2 different teams. And I think his relationship with Kenny Pickett always being the guy that was down on the sideline. They moved Matt Canada down to the sideline to try to help with that communication. We did see some success, and then I think they just took too many steps backwards against the Browns.
So again, it's Mike Tomlin using Eddie Faulkner as the coordinator during the week. This is Tomlin talking about his relationship with his running back coach.
Man, he has a real steady voice and demeanor. He's really solid. I love the way he has managed his room in the years that he's been here, through good times, bad times, etc. There's always great clarity in that space. He's natural with people. From a communication standpoint and a consistency of communication standpoint. And so I got no reservations about his ability to do it. I think when we all ascend in coaching, we take our experience and we expand it.
Yeah, and Eddie Faulkner's had a large part of the success of Jaylen Warren, a guy that they looked to when they brought him in as an undrafted free agent. Not many people wanted to give him a shot because of his size, but obviously the size of his heart's pretty big, and the guy runs amazingly hard. In fact, I always said he should be in the angry runs every week because he runs angrily. And so Faulkner has that experience with the run game, and those guys seem to respond to him. So now I guess the message becomes a larger one to everyone involved on that offense, including the offensive line.
Well, I think obviously you probably would have liked your team to hear it from you. I understand how things had to shake out, being that it is Tuesday and the players weren't in the building, but as Coach said, had a very thorough meeting with his coaching staff, divvied up the responsibilities and what he expects from them, so that when the players come in tomorrow, there's a very clear path. There's not people asking questions, who do I go to for this and whatnot. They're putting that on Eddie Faulkner, who'll also be the one who will be dealing with the media, talking when coordinators speak as well. And, it makes sense for what you have. As Coach said, he didn't ponder bringing in somebody from the outside. It's week 12 of the football season. You can't just make crazy changes like that and expect to see different results.
Yeah, and a lot of people out there felt that maybe Matt Canada was holding Kenny Pickett back. We're going to find out in these next 7 weeks. And I would expect an inspired performance from this offense. Sometimes you need a change to spark things up. They certainly did it in Buffalo, and they got results in their first game with 3 touchdown passes. And they didn't make as many mistakes with Joe Brady in charge. You wonder what this will be for this offense. And I got to imagine you're going to see a different sort of offense. I'm not sure exactly what, but different than what we've seen.
Well, and the Raiders, too. You saw it from them when they obviously got rid of Josh McDaniels. I think it's maybe one of those turning points. It was a very disappointing loss in Cleveland. They know what was at stake. It was a division loss. You're heading into another division game. It's kind of the do or die. Are you going to band together and get things back on track? Because we have seen them do it in recent weeks. It was just that loss in Cleveland was very detrimental to what they're trying to do of getting into the postseason.
And that would include a big win coming up on Sunday. They need to get one on the road against Cincinnati, a team without Joe Burrow. We'll break that down, talk about what the Steelers have to do in that game in advance of 2 home games in a very short amount of time. So schedule is getting crazy here as we go down the stretch. We'll talk more about that as we continue live right here on KDK Plus and Steeler Digital platforms right after this.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
How frustrating is a loss like this to you guys?
Very tough one. 13-10, winnable ball game. tip your hat to them. They got the job done late. We needed one more big play on defense and, extended drive on offense.
Cam, anything you can put your finger on that last drive? Was it the ball coming out quick? Did they do something?
that was the recipe of the whole game. They're gonna try to minimize the exposure to the quarterback. You get the ball out quick, screens, draws. We just gotta be a little bit more ready for those moments.
How hard is it to keep winning these close games like this?
Shouldn't be hard. It just happens. And we messed up. We didn't get the job done. We got to learn from our mistakes. We got to grow. But we can be hard on ourselves, but there's more football to be played.
A couple times you guys had to take a timeout where it looked like there were maybe one too many men on the field. Was that new guys in the mix? Was that the environment here, the communication? What can you attribute some of that confusion to defensively?
To be honest, personally, I don't even know. I didn't know why we had took the time out. We had too many people on the field.
I think so.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, it was like one of the first snaps of the game, and then it happened again, second half.
I didn't know. I really can't comment to. I didn't.
Was the environment challenging? Just being that the first 3 road games of the season, there were a lot more Steelers fans there probably than even the opposing team's fans.
I mean, when we on the field at home, bro, you can't hear nothing.
Yeah.
So. Any environment is hostile, but when their offense on the field, it's pretty, died down. Then when we at home, it's loud when the defense on the field. So, like I said, man, you just got to tip your hats off to them. We knew it was going to be a 60-minute game.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
Similar things, man. Really good, solid communicator, highly organized, really consistent. Has got experience as a play caller. Has got experience as a play caller in less than ideal circumstances. I think he's, been an interim play caller before, and so it's just a good means of calling upon guys who have natural skill sets in those areas or experience in those areas without disrupting the apple cart too much, man, and us still pushing forward as a collective.
Bob Pompiani, Missy Matthews back with you. Thank you for joining us today. Again, the big news, Matt Canada ousted as offensive coordinator, Eddie Faulkner, and Mike Sullivan will share those duties. But Sullivan does have that ability to do it because he's called games before in this same situation. And I wonder what his number one issue might be, because George Pickens has not been targeted enough for me. I think that guy has the ability to make catches even when they don't look possible. And I wonder if they're going to, talk about the communication between quarterback, wide receiver more, and how that impacts what they do actually in play calling.
I think there's a number of things you could point to as well. I think Jaylen Warren needs to get the ball more. The one stat heading into that game with the Browns, was that when he had 10 or more carries in a game going back to last season, the Steelers are 4-0. He had 9 in that game, and I think we saw the success at the end. And coach stood by, the decision for the 3 incomplete passes that went to Deontay Johnson, but could you have worked Jaylen Warren in there a little bit, getting some time off the clock? It's one of those things. It's 2020. You can go back and second guess things. If it worked, you wouldn't guess it. But I think there's a number of things, like you said, with Pickens and different guys. And now with Pat Freiermuth back, we only saw him targeted once in Cleveland as well.
Yeah, that obviously is a playmaker, and he needs to be used more in the middle of the field. And I wonder if the passing chart will expand. We've seen, most recently, Kenny Pickett goes to the sidelines quite a bit, and I think a lot of us are wondering, is that the play call, or is that his decision to do to avoid turnovers in the middle of the field? Because that middle of the field can be very productive if you utilize it the right way.
And we saw it in training camp and the preseason.
Exactly.
So maybe that is something that we'll see, but I think until they get to Cincinnati and we see how this works, it's going to be hard to guess what's going to happen. I think you don't make a decision like this unless you think that you can get positive results from it, especially being that it is week 12.
Well, speaking of change, Cincinnati has some changes to deal with because Joe Burrow suddenly is out. He hurt his wrist either before that game or in that game or whatever the case may be. The NFL is still investigating that. But that's a big loss. Although I will say, we talked about this before, Missy, with the group here, that this Bengals team has been good enough to beat San Francisco on the road, beat Buffalo, beat Seattle. These are big wins. So Joe Burrow has a lot to do with it, but they do have playmakers at all positions. They still have Mixon, and they still have some very talented wide receivers.
Well, even before that, Joe Burrow was dealing with that strained calf issue that you saw really hampering him at the beginning of the regular season. I think for Jake Browning, the benefit for him is that Burrow missed over 30-plus days of training camp and the preseason put together. So he had a chance to get a lot of those reps with the Jamar Chases of the world and all the different players that he's going to be playing with. And it seems like the Bengals are very confident, especially given that they played on Thursday Night Football, being able to tailor what he does well. Again, it's like the Steelers. You're not going to throw out the playbook, but he is still different than Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and he had success in college. He went to Washington. The Huskies went to the playoff and lost to Alabama eventually, but who doesn't in those situations? But he's a guy not unlike a Brock Purdy or someone who has a lot of success in college and maybe needs an opportunity. Who knows? We haven't really seen much of him. He's been in their organization for a while, so he understands what they're trying to do, and I think that point you made is a great one. He's had experience because of the Joe Burrow injury in the preseason.
Yeah, and I think it's different than maybe DTR with the Browns, where he's a rookie, he's come into the NFL and his head's spinning, he's trying to figure things out, and then you're thrown in to start against the Ravens earlier in the year, and then again this time. I think for him, as you said, fifth year, I believe, just having the NFL experience, being around guys and being around Joe Burrow and that offensive staff is going to give him a leg up in terms of being prepared for what they're going to ask him to do.
And while I often believe quarterbacks make wide receivers, a lot of people believe wide receivers can make quarterbacks. They have very talented guys, and if you have Jamar Chase open, if you have some protection time, he's very capable of finding him in those situations. So I think the Steelers got their hands full. Plus, remember, the Steelers are still waiting to find out about Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's going to be one of the big things this week heading into this game. Will he play or not? And I don't think they know the answer to that yet.
And I think Montravius Adams, too, dealing with that ankle injury. Coach said that both of those guys are pushing to be part of the game plan moving forward. But, Cam Hayward's still coming off of that injury. I think giving him a chance to get off the field a little bit more and having an extra body, especially when you need to stop the run. I don't think it's, it's crazy to say that the Bengals are also going to rely on their run game and Joe Mixon, being that you have a new quarterback making his first NFL start.
And this is a desperate team right now. They're 5-5, but their 5 losses have come in conference. And with all these teams pretty much log jammed together, conference tiebreakers are going to be big. So for Cincinnati, this, I would imagine, is a must-win, as it is for the Steelers. These are games you have to win inside your division. And you'll see this game coming up on Sunday, KDK TV. We'll take a break, come back with more of our reaction to the Mike Tomlin press conference on this Tomlin Tuesday right after this.
Gear up with game day necessities at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline gear, jerseys, terrible towels, memorabilia, and custom exclusives directly from the team. You can also gear up online at shop.steelers.com.
Kenny, right now, what's missing specifically from your play? This doesn't look like you out there.
Yeah, consistency. They're a great defense. Hats off to them first, but we didn't play, and I didn't play nearly as well enough.
What has to happen? What's missing?
That's a great question. We have to get in and find out.
In the last series, the 3-and-out, miscommunication with DJ on the deep ball.
Yeah, we had a couple miscommunications. Something that can't happen. We got to get it ironed out. Obviously, especially in a moment like that. We had some earlier in the game.
Is that a little concerning that it's this late in the year and those come up?
Say again?
Is it a little concerning that it's this late in the year and those?
It's always concerning whenever it comes up. You don't want to have that. We just got to get it worked out.
Hey, what's the confidence level in yourself right now?
Always confident in myself. It's an ultimate team game. We got to come together and figure this thing out.
What do you feel like was missing, especially early, that you had the last couple of weeks?
Some chunk plays to help us flip the field. We need to stay on the field, be better in third down, but chunk plays definitely help there.
And some of the missed throws you had, I think there was an overthrow, especially to Deontay. Is that a miscommunication on the route, or was it something that the Browns were doing defensively that was?
Yeah, miscommunication on the route.
Was the plan not to take very many deep shots?
No, the plan was they'd play a lot of man-to-man. They didn't play a lot of man-to-man today, so they threw a lot of zone looks at us, different zone looks. We were expecting them to come in and play man. We got to adjust better.
Kenny, I know you weren't getting the chunk plays in the past game, but Jalen Warren was giving you some chunk plays. I mean, how much do you need to get the ball for this?
Yeah, we need to continue to get it to him, whether it's the pass game, the run game. The guy always makes plays, so it's awesome to have 30 in the backfield.
Their pass rush was obviously very good, but it seemed like it was an issue from the first snap. Do you feel like you guys maybe need to be doing something differently, or just give her the ball faster? What did you feel like?
They do that to just about everybody, man. We came in with a good plan. We thought it was a good plan. You just got to execute. I thought the RO line did a great job. I was trying to get the ball out as quickly as I could. We tried to keep them off balance with some draws and some screens. But they're a good front.
Okay, with the success you were having with Jalen, you got the ball back with 142, but that was 3 straight passes. Was there much thought given to try to win the ball?
In a 2-minute situation like that, obviously you want to throw it. There's always times with the stoppage the clock, you could pop a draw, you could pop a run to start back up, but in that moment, no.
Experience the legacy of the Steelers like never before. Step into the Steelers Hall of Honor Museum at Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of Steelers history, rare artifacts, and interactive exhibits. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
I was really pleased with the level of communication and the quality of that communication, particularly guys in the interior communication portions of our defense, guys like Mike Walker, guys like Trent. I thought they did a really nice job. It's not easy, but I thought we, particularly after the first couple of series, we really settled down and operated with really good fluidity from a communication perspective, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, by and large, that was a winning defensive performance. Anytime you could hold a team to 13 points, pretty much 10 until the last seconds of the game, that should be good enough to win, which is probably what went into this decision as well today. But, middle of the field, Landon Roberts was a tackle machine there, although I didn't think Cleveland attacked the middle of the field from the pass point of view as much as I would have thought. Although, again, you have a third-string basic quarterback. I think it made it hard for them to do that. But Njoku had a lot of targets, but a lot of missed opportunities there, too.
Yeah, I think he had 4 drops at least. But towards the end, though, he did start catching them as they were engineering their game-winning drive as well. But I think, for Landon Roberts, 15 tackles and being the defensive quarterback, taking over that responsibility and playing 100% of the snaps, not having Minkah Fitzpatrick, there clearly was miscommunication in the beginning for the defense, having to call a timeout when there was too many guys on the field. A number of different things like that, but overall, even TJ Watt said after the game, they were able to stop the run. The problem is, the offense wasn't able to take advantage and score points when they did turn the ball over. You would think having that interception by Shannon Sullivan would have given the offense another chance as well. So unfortunately, that's just kind of how it played out. But I think having this game under their belt in terms of Landon Roberts being the guy, Michael Walker stepping up, different guys, even Trenton Thompson in the back, not knowing the status of Minkah Fitzpatrick, it's good as they head into another hostile environment in Cincinnati.
I thought the Steelers' number 17, Trenton Thompson, was pretty good given that he hadn't played all year. And we saw him in the preseason. You might remember, Missy, he had an interception in the Tampa Bay first game. He looked like someone who was on the cusp of maybe making the roster. While he didn't, he's been around here now, and I thought by all accounts he played very well.
Well, I thought, heading into this game, Coach Tomlin was asked about some of those new faces, and he said, look, the guys on our practice squad aren't necessarily who we're trying to develop. It's guys that we know that can play if we need it, and they clearly have had to use some of those guys. It's why the Steelers signed Myles Jack, he unretired, to their practice squad as well because of the lack of depth at that position.
Do you think Joey Porter Jr. is going to go into Coach Tomlin's office and say, Coach, I want Jamar.
I
want Jamar.
Knowing him, absolutely.
Do you think that'll happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's good to have a confident cornerback for sure, and he's that. The one thing we saw last week was, they call, when you hold on too much, you're going to call it eventually. And I thought while at college, Joey Porter got away with some of that. The longer this goes, I think you got to watch how your hands are positioned. It's such a difficult job to be a defensive back, especially against some of these great receivers who have offensive rules on their side.
Yeah, and he knows what he signed up for. I think he knows what everybody said about him coming out of college, heading into the draft this year. But it goes back to that other game where Coach was talking about, the tenure of the officiating crew. It's true, though. It felt like this crew was letting them play a little bit more than maybe previous ones, but it felt like it was fair on both sides. The roughing the passer on Alex Highsmith, we can debate that one, but
Well, that's always going to be debatable because you never know.
Well, they're never called consistently.
No, you get some, like last night in the game where the Eagles, Fletcher Cox got called for, which I thought was, but back 20 years ago, that was just, you wouldn't have even thought that was a hit on a quarterback that was a roughing. But today they're protecting these guys, and they're going to continue to do so. So it puts a lot of emphasis on edge rushers, and we didn't see necessarily production as far as sacks. We saw a lot of tackles from Highsmith and Watt. I think in this game coming up, unless they get rid of the ball quickly with a new quarterback in Jake Browning, they're going to have to be more significant in terms of those kinds of splash plays.
Yeah, and I think even, TJ Watt facing Joe Burrow the last few times, he usually made his life a living hell in terms of being able to anticipate the Watt swat, doing different things like that. He's intercepted him, I think, at least 3 times.
Yeah.
So I think, especially as you said, for a quarterback making his first start, something for them to watch. But they're still, they're gaining attention and they're taking guys away. It just does feel like you want them to get home a little bit more, something that we saw earlier in the season, and maybe it can start happening in bunches again.
And the Steelers have got to worry about Trey Hendrickson. He's one of the better guys in the league. He's never mentioned up there with Watt and Garrett, but boy, he knows how to do it. And his career is, again, somebody who wasn't looked at as someone who's going to be a significant player, and he's turned out to be exactly that for them.
Well, and I think their defense for Cincinnati as a whole is really good. Mike Hilton has really inserted himself as he made the decision to go there a few years ago as well, and we've seen what they've been able to do. So it'll be a tall task, and the Steelers having some changes on offense and going to have to regroup and get ready to go.
Yeah, they certainly do. But, again, you see their front. They're very capable of stopping the run. I think this is going to be hugely a running game, not unlike what we saw last week. Both sides are going to want to establish that, especially Cincinnati with Joe Mixon. They do it anyway, but I think they'll do it more. And as far as the Steelers, are going to have to avoid plays like that one right there, because they do get in there. And this is why play action is good if you can make it work. The Steelers have been running the ball well enough where I think that becomes a component that I want to see more of moving forward with this OC change.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times in Cleveland, it just felt like there was a defensive guy in the backfield almost instantly, or knowing what was about to happen and stopping what could have been a successful play. So it will be interesting to see, and it's one to look forward to. As if it wasn't enough, I think obviously a lot more attention nationally will be on this one as well.
Yeah, and the AFC is really just logjam with teams at either 6-5, 5-5, 4-5. Denver has now emerged as somebody after a 1-5 start. They've won 4 in a row. Kansas City lost a game last night. I thought they played better than the Eagles, even without Dallas Goedert. He wasn't there, but their pass game worked, the run game worked, and Goddard's a big part of their offense. Yet they went to Kansas City, won that game. How many drop passes with Kansas City? Mahomes cannot do any better than he did last night late in games. Not that this is a Kansas City Chiefs show, but I mean, that's an AFC team that's now 7-3.
Or a Philadelphia Eagles show.
Right,
but yeah, I unfortunately fell asleep sometime during the third quarter. So when I woke up, the game was over, and I was like, oh, they're interviewing. Like, I totally missed what had happened. So.
Wow.
I unfortunately had to go back and watch the highlights.
They had a touchdown that was dropped in the end zone by Valdez-Scantling, and it was a critical one because they would have won the game. But that's a good break for everybody else in the AFC. We'll take a break on that note, come back with more, and wrap it up here from the UPMC Rooney Southside facility on a day the Steelers make a change to their offensive coordinator. We're back in a flash.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
TJ, it seemed like, and Mike said also, the first couple drives, maybe communication was a bit of a struggle. Was that tough in those, especially given the environment to get guys set, and you had new guys in different places? And you feel like things settled down after that?
Yeah, it just took us too long to settle down today. Once we did, it felt like we handled the run pretty well, and we were able to make some plays, but it just took too long to settle in.
TJ, what were you able to see from Michael Walker his first game up with you guys?
I mean, I thought he did some good things. It's too early. I'm not able to analyze anyone's play right now. I only know what just transpired for myself, so I have to look back at the film and see how it went. But overall, I felt like, we held him under 100 yards rushing, which is a goal. But we still need to find ways to create more splash, get off the field quicker, and provide better field position for our offense.
Anything between the first half and the second half that you guys did obviously a lot more effective in the second half at everything?
I think it was just continuing to hone in the communication. When you have that many new guys, it's just a matter of calming down and just getting in the rhythm of the game. And like I said, I think it just took us too long to get into the rhythm. But once we did, we were able to play relatively effective football, obviously not enough.
Now, some of that bad that you mentioned, I mean, was there a lot of confusion at times? There were a couple defensive timeouts called, which you never really want. It's hard to tell from the press box, with maybe 12 on the field. What can you kind of attribute some of that, disjointedness to?
Man, that starts with us. I mean, obviously, we got to pay attention. That starts with us. I thought we had a really good game plan. Like you said, it got loose here and there. That's something we're going to look ourselves in the mirror and correct.
So many new faces out there. How difficult is that?
I mean, like I said, we're all professional athletes. You can't make excuses for your next man up, your next man up. I mean, they expect you to play like the last guys played. So there's no excuses for next man up or nothing like that. I thought we went out there, played hard, and we just came up a little bit short.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
Mike, are these final 7 games important, critical in the long-term development of Kenny?
Man, I'm focused on this week in terms of the development of Kenny. We're not urinating on the fire, man. We're getting ready to play a football game and win this week. That is the only agenda here.
And a long line of Tomlin isms.
That's a new one.
That's a new one, and you're going to have to rank that eventually. But pretty much, no, you don't want to do that. They are going, and I do think it's important for the development of Kenny Pickett. If he was uncomfortable with this system, if he was uncomfortable with the communication, now it changes. And so the onus will become, what does the quarterback do with these new people involved, even though they're still the same people that he knows and I'm sure trusts. But there's got to be some difference in production. They haven't had in 45 career games under Matt Canada one game go over 400 yards. And while that is a number people like to get to, it's still, you got to score points in this league. You got to take pressure away from your defense, which cannot be expected, I think, week in and week out to make a game-changing play. They've done a pretty good job of that, but you can't rely on it every week.
Well, just think about how many close games they had. All 6 wins were one-score games. You knew at maybe some point it wasn't going to go in their favor, and there was no fourth quarter magic in Cleveland, unfortunately.
All right, well, we got a big game coming up. Missy, thanks as always. Appreciate it. That's going to do it for us today. Coming up this weekend, it's the Steelers at the Bengals. 11:30 a.m. pregame on KDKA. We got 2 hours of postgame afterwards. The game, you'll see it at 1 on KDKA TV. So thank you for joining us. We also have on Saturday night, it's the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show. So Missy and I will take you there, and we'll update everything going into the game against Cincinnati. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you again next Tuesday for another edition of the Mike Tomlin Press Conference. Have a great week.